All right, we're on. How's it going?
Hi.
Hi, I'm Seth Michael May. This is Obscuria Films, episode 5, Ralph Bakshi's Wizards, 1977 release, made in 1976. This is my pitch. Yes, Sean? Raising your hand?
No.
Oh, okay.
So why'd you make us watch this totally insane movie?
This movie, well, I wanted us to watch a different Ralph Bakshi film, but that film goes by the name of Coonskin, and it's a black exploitation cartoon that he made, and it was released when I saw it as Street Fight on video, so that it wouldn't have the un-PC name of Coonskin. And I figured, since we're only on episode 5, we probably shouldn't do Coonskin with only 22 subscribers.
Wait, what movie was that again?
Coonskin, or Street Fight as it was released on, which was Ralph Bakshi's retelling of the Brer Rabbit story in 1970s Harlem, and has Scatman Crothers doing the voice. So I said, let's do Wizards, because, that's his first family film, and it definitely has flaws in it. I noticed more flaws in it this viewing than any time before. So the thing about Wizards was he wanted to do a family film, a departure from Fritz the Cat, and Heavy Traffic, and his other movies. And he made a film where the first female characters you see are a bunch of prostitutes as the death android walks out of the evil city to go assassinate.
And they have nipples as well.
They have nipples, yeah.
Very family friendly.
It's very family friendly. But you know what? I mean, there's a lot of things to like about Wizards, and we'll talk about that. I think Judy loved it because it's got fairies in it. Come on.
I loved like 5 minutes of it.
Okay, 5 minutes of it? Okay.
Yeah, like 10 minutes in, I was like, oh, this is surprisingly fun. And then by about 40, I was like, okay, check the time. How much is left? And I don't remember what happened at the end. I think I checked out.
Okay, all right.
I had to smoke vape a lot of weed for that one.
Okay.
Because
I kind of wished I did.
Yeah, because I figured out very quickly that this is going to be a case of Ralph Bakshi, who doesn't care at all about telling a coherent story, doing just that. And I mean, I think he probably did want to tell a coherent story, and there were budgetary issues or something.
Yeah, they spent $2 million making Wizards, and he was paying out of his own pocket, the animators near the end.
Wow.
I mean, one thing you can say about Ralph Bakshi in general is like everything he does is kind of a hot mess. I mean, it's a big, beautiful disaster. Everything he does, his style and his technique is so interesting, and his animation style. Well, let me start by I'll make my pitch too, because I know this is your thing.
Okay.
I never knew who Ralph Bakshi was until Seth told me who he was. However, I was obsessed with a movie that he had made that I didn't realize he made when I was a little kid, and that was The Lord of the Rings. So that was my introduction to Ralph Bakshi, not knowing who the animator was. It was just some obscure VHS tape that my dad had, and we would watch this all the time. And it was amazing because you had what looked like, I didn't understand how he did it, but it looked like frames of real live action video with that was painted over. And that was, unlike just some of the scenes in Wizards are being like that, the entire Lord of the Rings is like that.
Right.
And it's stunning. And it's not his storyline, it's Tolkien's storyline. And he's just sort of telling that story with his style. And it's an unbelievable, as far as I remember, it's one of the greatest animated films ever made.
Yeah.
That's
Lord of the Rings.
I felt about it at the time. And, so I kind of just have a soft spot for him because of that. And so I can sit through the bullshit that he did in Wizards because I just love the guy.
I think Peter Jackson, who stole actual frames from it and shot it exactly his version of the first Lord of the Rings that he did from Ralph Bakshi, and never gave him credit. Ralph Bakshi was like, I could finish Wizards if Peter Jackson gave me the money for the shot that he stole and the amount of tinkering I did with the Tolkien estate to get him the rights, because Bakshi had the rights to do the entire trilogy. And but the technology that you're mentioning is the technology he used to finish Wizards, which is a series of like, he took Xeroxes and did frames and frames of like Xeroxes that then they painted and drew over. And you'll notice also, interestingly enough, all the people who painted the cells, because this is hand painted animation in 1976, are all, the only job women could get in film back then was cell painters in animation and editors. So like all the cell painters are women in this movie when you look at the list. So
you're saying that Bakshi didn't actually do a lot of the drawings himself?
He did do I think he did do the drawings himself,
and
although
do all the grunt work.
But they did. They painted the cells.
Yeah.
So the guy who did a lot of the animation is a guy named Doug Klug, who's my friend on Facebook, as well as Ralph Bakshi, by the way. That's a pitch for you guys. And
he's still alive, right? He's still alive.
Both still alive, yeah. They're both in their 80s, I think. And
Ralph Bakshi's not that old.
Yeah, 82, I think.
Yeah.
He's 82 or 83.
One last thing.
He was born in Haifa before Israel became a state.
Right.
Yeah.
So
he's a Disney refugee. He was an animator for Disney, but decided to quit and do his own thing. So I think that's, I just wanted to mention that.
Disney, or was it like
it was
Tom
Disney.
and Jerry or something like that?
No, he was with them before. He was with Hanna-Barbera, but then upgraded to Disney. He thought Disney was one thing. Turned out Disney was something else in it. He didn't like it there, so he left. Took a couple. I think he took one guy and maybe a couple others, and started to do his own thing.
He was fired by Walter Lantz for doing Fritz the Cat, and Walter Lantz.
And then he got fired.
He did Woody Woodpecker.
Fritz.
And but the thing is that he used a lot of minority animators and a lot of female cell painters and things like that. He was a real New York filmmaker guy, and he was friends with Scorsese and Lucas and all. This is a time when there was a big gap between LA filmmakers and New York filmmakers. And Bakshi was a pretty influential 70s filmmaker, enough that a bit of trivia, Lucas met with him because Wizards was originally going to be called Wizards War. And Lucas didn't want people to be confused that Star Wars was coming out between Wizards War and Star Wars. So he agreed to take the title and make it Wizards. And that's why Mark Hamill is the voice of Sean.
I noticed that. I was like, what? Mark Hamill?
He's Sean, the leader of the Knights of Stardust.
Okay, so I'm going to have to chime in here for a second, because I think we've schmoozed a little bit too much before you actually trying to explain what the hell is. But take us through the basic plot.
Okay, now it's good that we started this way because Star Wars, as Judy disappears with her baby, which reminds me of the queen that's holding the baby in the movie Wizards, because all the bad guys have wives and the good guys don't. Wizards starts, unlike Star Wars, which just says a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and then there's an opening scroll that's very short. Wizards has like a book of narration that's like you kind of fell asleep during 5 or 10 different movies or fantasy books and woke up and your girlfriend was telling you a bedtime story or the plot of like Never-Ending Story and you fell asleep again. And it's like that. It's like the world blows up. This is the spoilers, people. You should turn it off here and watch.
Wait, no. The world blew up by 5 terrorists.
5 terrorists started.
A million years ago.
Like a million. 6,000, right? Or a million years.
It was they threw out so many numbers.
There's so many numbers in Wizards. It takes
millions of years a few times.
It's like the first 15 minutes of the movie is like a a film noir that takes.
It is.
over
But why they say
millions of
5
years.
terrorists? And how the fuck do these cartoons know they were 5? Sorry.
Yeah, it's like
Please,
5 terrorists do something, but we don't know what it is. They set off the first bomb.
How do they know 5? Go ahead,
Then
Seth.
there's
I
World
interrupted.
War III. It burns up everything and creates mutants. And speaking of mutants, what are you smoking today? So long as we're talking about mutants there, Sean, what?
This is CBD in my tobacco use water only water pipe.
Okay. Is there a name for this CBD? Does it have a name?
Space Candy 89.
Is that the CBD buds that you buy from those like little shit bodegas?
Yes.
Okay.
In the glass cases. Yeah.
Not to be confused with Necron 9, who is
Sour Space Candy 89.
yeah.
Grown indoors.
Here you go. So okay, so the world blows up. There's a war, and mutants. Most of the human beings turn into mutants. That's most of the world. There are very few pure human beings left. But then presumably human beings or just flowers and trees, we don't know, in another 3,000 years, I think, give birth to fairies, elves, and dwarves. And then there's a war between fairies, elves, and dwarves and mutants.
Wait, fairies, elves, and dwarves against the
Against the mutants.
It's a coalition.
It's a
of fairies,
coalition.
elves, and dwarves.
Dwarves against mutants. Also, somewhere in there, we find out later that the fairies and elves don't like each other, but we don't know why. Again, this movie was probably supposed to be a trilogy, and they didn't get to do it. So then, the queen of the good fairies, there's a big party that they beat the mutants, if I remember correctly, and she gives birth. Oh, and everyone falls asleep, right? Because there's a storm. We don't know why. And when they wake up, the queen of the fairies is pregnant. She gives birth, and it's 2 twins. And they're not just twins, they're wizards. The good wizard, Avatar, who I guess has a motivation because he loves his mother, and we go on to find out that he actually heals people of radiation sickness. And Black Wolf, who is the evil wizard, who looks really cool. Because Doug Plug's character design, Doug Plug designed for Marvel Comics Ghost Rider. And the skull-faced motorcycle riding character that they made the Ghost Rider movie with Nick Cage, which maybe we'll do someday. Although I think it's a piece of track. Anyway, Black Wolf is really cool looking because he has these bones exposed on his arm, like just bones, and the rest of him looks pretty much like a whiz, like an old kind of evil wizard guy. And he's genetically evil, I guess, because but this was my thing. My first thing when a villain has no motivation except to be evil and rule the world, I'm like, what's going on? So anyway, he and Avatar fight when their mother dies, and Avatar wins, and Black Wolf runs off to the land of Scorch in the north. And Scorch.
He becomes like king of the mutants.
Right? He becomes king of the mutants, yeah.
With his magical power.
And he starts looking for technology, because there's a war between magic and technology.
That's one of the main themes.
That's one of the main themes of Wizards.
Or the only main.
And because the mutants just can't work it out, even with demons from hell being their generals, they can't win. And then the real thing of the plot of Wizards is Black Wolf finds a technology from our world, from the past, that's going to help him conquer the world. And that is, spoiler, the propaganda films of the Third Reich.
Yeah, let me just jump in, because you bring that up. In the movie, he uses film cells from other movies. And I wanted to pause it, and I paused it, and I looked at it. That's a movie cell. I don't know what movie it's from or what country it was made in, but he didn't give credit for that movie cell.
It's Riefenstahl, I think.
Riefenstahl?
Riefenstahl's propaganda films. I
Oh,
think
Lenny Riefenstahl, Triumph of the Will.
Triumph of the Will.
Wait.
I think it's Alexander Nevsky.
He used cells from
Yeah,
Triumph
that's
of
what it
the
is.
Will.
and then he uses Birth of a Nation, I think, too.
Does he? I didn't notice.
I believe so.
The Triumph of the Will. I dare our audience to Google that movie. Go ahead, Seth.
It's quite an amazing piece of film history.
Yeah.
It's pro-Nazi.
I think I had to watch that in my AP,
Yeah, so did I.
AP political science class or something.
That movie is pro-Nazi, and you can't just watch it. You can't find it and watch it. You need to be given permission to watch that movie and logged and cataloged, and you need a reason to do it. You need to apply to watch the full.
Really?
That's ridiculous.
Yes.
This is
Yo,
good.
where is this?
It's the academics.
Because we watched parts of it in high school in humanity.
Right, in high school, when the parts of it in high school, nobody hasn't seen the full thing without being known who they are.
You can get the DVD. I'm sure you can get the DVD
All right.
Criterion or something.
If you do,
it's not that shocking of a movie.
I know, but
I have noticed that it's harder and harder to find archival footage of Hitler giving speeches.
Yeah. The most photographed man of the 20th century.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think that's weird because I'm like, you use that stuff, Ralph? Mr. Bakshi used that stuff. Not only that, there was a lot of swastikas in this.
The first time you see Black Wolf,
he's on a swastika, and then his little pet dragon is
Larry the dragon.
Larry the dragon is eating a piece of a pig hanging from a chain with the Star of David on the pig's butt. When I wrote that down. This is in the first 10 minutes. I'm like, yo, man, what are you doing, Ralph? Go ahead.
Ralph's from what was once called British occupied Palestine and became Israel, and he feels this is a telling of the hope of Israel to save the world. Like
you got to use stars and Davids and swastikas. Can't you just have the story without? All right, okay, all right.
I think there's a certain generation of making Hitler look like a clown in certain, you see it in certain aged Jewish artists and filmmakers, and I would say Ralph is one of those.
He's a product of his time.
He's a product of his time. I think that there's certain things in this movie that were ripped off later for other films.
It's very innovative. The film is very innovative. This is like in my nerd circle of friends, this is a gem that are you cool enough that you've seen or even known of the movie called Wizards and stuff? Just like the movie Incubus from I forget when with William Shatner. That's another nerd gem.
I've never seen Incubus.
Yeah, well, you're not that much of a nerd. That's
seen Kingdom of the Spiders, but I've never seen.
See Kingdom of the Spiders?
Yes. Yeah, it's a Shatner film.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I just thought it was like.
The reason I'm having such trouble giving people the plot of this movie is because on my fifth viewing, I was like really trying to get the timeline down. In fact, I text you guys during the week. What is the timeline? Because there is this woman.
They throw out so many years.
Who is narrating this, who didn't want a voiceover credit in it, but got more voiceover work for doing Wizards than anything else. She's also in John Huston's, what's the one about boxers?
Boxers?
Stacy Keach.
Stacy
something City. Can you look that up? Someone on IMDb?
Say it again.
It's Stacy Keach. It's a John Huston movie. Fat City, I think it's called. And she was in this movie, and she's great in it. She worked for Tennessee Williams. She was in Camino Real on Broadway.
Casino Royale?
No. Camino Real.
Susan Tyrell?
Susan Tyrell is the narrator. And she has this sound like...
whoa, look at this chick.
She's got she's kind of got like a Stoner Valley girl.
She does. Good for her. And that's amazing eyeliner. God bless your heart.
And wow. She is so good in this movie, Fat City. But when I saw her in Fat City, I was like, that voice sounds familiar. And it's because she was the narrator of wizards. And she told Ralph Bakshi, it's so terrible. My narration is so terrible. I don't want to be credited in it. And then years later, Ralph Bakshi said she thanked him because she got more voiceover work because of wizards than anything she did.
She was very good. Like she was because there would be interludes. There'd be like chapters, and each chapter would start with a narration from her, and it gave it this fable-like feel. And she really knew how to use her voice in that.
But the reason she's there is because
it's an
unfinished film that he ran out of money for. So he has to use these storyboards and a narrator.
That's what I thought. I just want to say this one thing. He didn't do it as a stylistic choice. He did it because he needed to get the movie done. So he used the easiest things to do to make animation, which was to take pre-shot footage and just paint over the cells.
Right.
And that's it. Go ahead.
All right. And these are the story designs, the storyboards that he's just panning a camera across
in the beginning. Yeah.
In the beginning, and then also the battle too, and then the battle too, and then Doug Klug's drawings are great. He went on to also do the story design for Shrek. But that's what I was really aware of this time. I was like, man, this would have been really interesting if the whole thing was animated the way he wanted to do it.
I bet, because I could see during the battle scenes, he really did cut some corners. Because I guess he had to, and because he was there was an obstruction of money, he had to force himself to get creative, because he would do a background of just a two-color pastel swoosh, and then have another layer of like soldiers, and then the real animation in the third layer in like the front, and it looked cool. But he did it because he needed to find the money. And by the way, I mean, it cost him $2 million. The box office was $9 million.
9 million. Yeah.
So good for him. It worked. It's one of these gems, and it's very innovative. But I think what Judy said, it does. I mean, I don't know, Judy. Did you say it doesn't make sense? Because I didn't get it. It was like, wait, what?
It's more that just I was really interested in after the first 5 minutes, I was like, oh, this looks fun. But then by halfway through, I think I just started to get confused. So I just naturally was checking out.
He has the sole writing credits. And that's the thing, man. If you have $2 million, give 1,000 to any screenwriting writer.
Yeah.
And just to give because the theme does, I mean, it's not focused. It's like technology versus nature, and he says so as much in the thing. But I just thought it was just so strange. And not only that, there was a theme of the rottenness of humanity, and he had he wrote some scenes between some unnamed soldiers about how rotten people
Fritz
are.
And Ralph.
Right, about how lazy and rotten people are, and hypocritical, and I guess, and then they're supposed to be.
That's a tribute to the cops from Fritz the Cat.
Yeah, but here's my thing: Avatar, the Good Wizard, has a Brooklyn accent.
What's the matter with that?
Well, why?
He's like Peter Falk, like Columbo.
But he's not. He's a wizard.
So what? Why can't a wizard be from Brooklyn?
Just pronounce your R's. Pronounce your R's.
That's
all I'm saying.
This is the sort of, the whole thing is kind of like, the only way you can really appreciate it is it's like an absurdist type of narrative.
It's a real New York film. That's why they have New York accents.
And also, this was a period of time where people were experimenting in films that don't really make any sense, right? I mean, there were a lot of movies coming out that had completely incoherent plots and were just whimsical, and the ending where the thing that sticks out is now he's gonna start banging the Eleanor.
The half fairy.
Well,
we don't know.
Bimbo. The whole thing is just her tits are flopping everywhere.
It is.
It's basically he's like a cartoon pornographer kind of,
Well, I think this was the first X-rated cartoon.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's, but Ralph really did go that direction, because with cartoons, they were so pacified that you wouldn't even imagine doing that. He's like, well, why not? Let's draw, cleavage and nipples. And just, yeah, they're half animals, but let's add some sexuality and see where that goes. And he did start that because that's half of comic books now. Or
That's
just
why
like,
the whole thing is basically like a weird animated porno snuff film. Like what happens in a porno? It's like the pizza guy comes in and then all of a
That's a good
sudden they're
point.
having sex. Why? Like it
maybe
doesn't
that's why all those nerds like it, because
But this is his family departure. For Ralph Bakshi,
Right.
this is a family
But
film.
it's not.
Also,
Not
I
for kids,
just want to
not-
say,
This podcast is not for kids. This filmcast is not for kids, and that movie is not for kids.
I believe the worst word in this movie is whore, though. For a Ralph Bakshi film, that's pretty good. There's no racism in this one except against fairies and elves and mutants.
Yeah.
and the Jewish people, I guess.
And I guess the two rabbi priests that
That's a little
they.
bit offensive.
Also, I think the acting, it was just weird. I don't think Ralph really. I mean, yeah, I don't think Ralph really knew how to direct this, because a lot of the acting was the voice acting was taking itself too seriously. Like whoever was doing these in the booths, I forget the names, but they were just really doing it like they were in some sort of scene at NYU acting school. Hold on, you hear that siren?
They're coming after
They're
you.
coming after you for bad mouth in the film, man.
So that's just, I just wanted to mention that because I'm like, take it easy, man. It's like, because you're in a cartoon. The actor didn't really, I'm gonna be really acting here. I'm like, you're in a cartoon.
I
man.
think he was directed that way because Mark Hamill says this was the first voiceover job he did. Mark Hamill went on to be the voice of the Joker and won accolades for that. And now he's the voice of Skeletor and has done a lot. Yeah, it's a new Skeletor voice. And he's done a lot, but this was his first voice. And he said Ralph was really giving him grief that he didn't sound like a fairy.
Oh, okay. Because it was just like, that was one of the thing here too. And I guess what I did like about it, it was a good mix of fantasy and technology, kind of like He-Man, how it's like fantasy, but they have ray guns and stuff, and you don't really question it. You're like, okay, I could see how this all mixes together. And that was cool. But another thing I wrote is like there was a swastika and then eating of a Star of David meat, and then he uses the term master race. And then there was
the new master race.
Then he had found footage of Hitler and then straight up Nazis. And I'm thinking, can't you? I just don't understand. Like when something's, I guess this was 1977. It wasn't too far removed from the ending of the Second World War, but you couldn't think of other things. You can't just have evil versus good. They have to be Nazis.
There's a period, like I was thinking about doing Boys from Brazil too. There's a period in the 70s where people go crazy with the bad people being Nazis.
I think they actually found
Nazis. Like there's a definite jump off where we're far enough away from that where we can start doing that. And this is one of those films.
I guess because I think in the 70s they actually did find Nazis and then got them to trial, and yet was it called Assad? They assassinated a couple too.
When did they find Eichmann?
Eichmann actually was early 60s.
Oh, okay.
I
remember some
No, late 60s. The Eichmann trial, I believe, coincided with the moon landing, and the moon landing was the only reason why the Eichmann trial didn't get as much viewership around the world as it would have, because this monumental historical event was taking place. But yeah, they've been hunting Nazis. They're still hunting them. I think it's winding down at this point. But that's been an operation that's been going on because of the dedication of a couple of cowboys.
I think, but there was a couple in the 70s, and I think that's why there was a lot of
70s,
resurgence.
Yeah.
Because it was in like the public sphere, and then I'm making a movie about evil, and there's, I'm Ralph, and then there's news on about, so maybe I'll have that in there. But I guess he did. I mean, I don't know. He was just illustrating the bowels of humanity and how corrupt we can go, and that doesn't make a story, guys. It just doesn't make a story.
The whole thing is like, what's Black Wolf's motivation for being bad?
Well, yeah, exactly. That's my thing. If it's a fable, then please write a fable. It's fine. But a fable, it needs to have a moral lesson or a moral quandary laid out.
I guess they both have
This
mother
doesn't
issues.
have that.
I guess that's what it is.
When in
What?
doubt, default to the mother.
The mother issues.
Well,
And
they did mention the mother with the twins. They said that in their first battle, they specifically said that Avatar won due to the grief that he had over the death of the mother, where the other, I can't remember his name, the dark side didn't have any grief. The dark side took off as soon as he could. He didn't give a crap about the mother. But Avatar did. He stuck by his mother's side until her death, and that was his grief that caused him to win. It was the only time they mentioned it, though.
And the only other mother we see is Black Wolf's wife, which
She was hot. She was pretty hot. Purple skin, yellow eyes, the ears that go to like this, the ears that go like.
And she looks, like a cross between an evil queen, like Snow White's mom, and the Madonna, because she's holding a baby.
Being abused. She was being abused. He kills the baby. He kills his own baby.
He wants to kill his own baby, but she's still holding the baby when she breaks up the fight between Weehawk and Eleanor.
I was just, and why did Eleanor just betray them out of nowhere? Because then later on, go ahead, answer the question here.
Because she touches Speak, and Black Wolf, Speak is the Peace, not Speak. Speak is somebody else.
Wait, is Peace the red dude?
That's Necron 99. They renamed him Peace.
After they
reprogram him with magic.
Oh, I was going to ask that because I didn't know why he was their friend all of a sudden.
Okay, well,
I missed that part.
Avatar explains that I've renamed him Peace because he'll bring it into the world.
So he wasn't a creature; he was a robot.
He was a robot. Yeah.
Right. He was like connected to the mother.
One of 9
Why was he wearing a suit? Why was he wearing like a giant jumpsuit?
What'd you say, Judy?
They talk about how he was like I don't know if he was like a beacon or something. He like a computer. He was like connected to the home base of evil.
Yeah, he's one of 9 robots.
Yeah.
And the light goes out on Necron 9. And Larry says there's still 8 lights that haven't gone out. And Black Wolf is like, no, that's it. Which I think they stole for Empire Strikes Back in the beginning when they're like, we've launched thousands of probes, Lord Vader. Like, that could be anyone. That could be smugglers. And he's like, no, they're there. I think they stole that from this. And I think they stole Boba Fett from Necron 9, too.
Oh, yeah.
And IG-88. Because they predate him by 1980 is when Empire Strikes Back comes out.
Yeah, I guess a lot of those things are so vague you could connect it to anything because this is what I heard. Boba Fett was based on Harrison Ford's character, Bob Falfa, in 1973's American Graffiti. Boba Fett, Bob Falfa. That's what I heard. But, it's so vague. It's like all this stuff. That's why I don't like about Wizards is that it's just too vague. And just because you put a swastika every now and again doesn't make it specific. Well, maybe not now. Maybe he did in 1977 because it was weapons and technology versus love and nature, which they said as much. I'm saying is verbatim from the movie.
Right.
And that's another thing. You got to say all this stuff and not just like show it. I don't know.
Yeah, this is the problem.
And I didn't like the Brooklyn accent with the wizard.
Can I ask you this question?
Yes.
Do you like Last Temptation of Christ?
Yes.
They all have Brooklyn accents in that.
Yeah, but that's just.
What?
See, that's the thing. They all did. Just like when you watch a Russian submarine movie, they all have British accents. You just go along with it. Here, Avatar is the only one with the Brooklyn accent. His brother doesn't even have a Brooklyn accent. If they both had Brooklyn accents, maybe that.
The hero, the idea. Listen, the hero of the story is a New York Jew. That's who he's trying to impress. Is a guy from the street that you can relate. Your regular guy.
All right. If I had $2 million, I would do that.
Dumb.
I like it.
Dumb, but that's the whole point. And
why does Bugs Bunny have a Bronx Brooklyn accent?
Because he's mischievous.
Oh, okay. So I don't know.
Sean, have you ever seen Fellini's Satyricon?
No.
Have you watched watched many Fellini films?
No.
You probably wouldn't like him very much.
Okay. Yeah, I don't. I try not to dig in the Italians.
Yeah, I get
Try to
it.
avoid them.
Yeah, you
honestly.
know,
So-
I respect your orthodoxy of having a storyline. I respect that.
Well, I don't like Argento, and I don't like Fulci either.
I hope you also don't like Darren Aronofsky then.
He's not my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was going to make RoboCop, and I was excited about that, but that funding fell through. It would nice have been seeing his RoboCop. That would have been cool, but that's I get because he's from Brooklyn, and his parents were professors, I think, or
I
something.
forgive people who don't tell the most coherent stories if they're weird and fun enough. And I think that I give this a thumbs up because it's weird enough and funny enough, and there's enough cool stuff happening.
Funny, yeah, but you were laughing at it.
Yeah, a little bit.
That's what I'm saying.
Supposed to
But
laugh
how
at
often?
this
comedy.
Listen, when you see a stand-up comedian, are you laughing at them?
I guess it depends on the thing. I suppose.
Kind of laughing at them.
All right, and hold on. There was a Viking.
Yeah, it's a shtick.
What
What
was
you're
that?
laughing at.
There was a Viking named Abdul. What's that? His name was Abdul. He was a Viking. Those are two opposite
He
things.
was an elf Viking, though, right?
Is he a warrior Persian, or is his name?
Maybe it's like the 13th warrior, where the Arab goes to be with the
I'll tell you
Viking.
this. I just rewatched that like
It's a
2
good
weeks
movie.
ago because it's
Yeah.
amazing.
That's an
Yeah,
amazing,
but
underrated
he
film.
he was Persian, and he went on into Scandinavia. He wasn't a Viking named Abdul. He wasn't a Viking.
He stayed with the Vikings and became a Viking named Abdul at the end of
No,
it.
but he came back. All right, whatever.
I'm just saying.
I love Antonio. Anything with Antonio, I'm pretty much halfway there.
So should we go through the cast of characters and we could talk about them, whether we like them or
Oh
not?
wait, hold on. I have another thing here. The
Okay.
red clad assassin all of a sudden was a good guy. Did I miss something? And yes, I
Explain
did.
that.
I did. Okay. And Eleanor just betrayed them, and they explain that in a while because, oh God, it's just that is not feminist. How Eleanor just betrayed them. Let me just say that because
I don't
it's
think he
just,
has a great depiction of any female.
yeah, it's not. It's not.
Like, I don't know if he gets women.
I don't think he
He
does.
likes women.
He
but
has-
I don't know if
He describes the negative tendencies of women.
Yeah.
Well, he understands what a bad woman will do in different
Yeah.
situations. He's not flattering. He doesn't. Yeah, there's definitely an element of misogyny in the way he writes, simply because he only write but he also shows mostly bad, like all the bad impulses of men.
Of
Yeah,
men
he
as
shows
well.
his- yeah,
He's
he
sort of
doesn't-
looking at the negative. He's showing
Of
the
everything.
ugliest parts of people.
But still, it's like Eleanor was too weak-minded to stand up for herself, and when she saw
Yeah.
Hawkface, Black Wolf, what was his name?
Who? Which one?
The bad guy,
Black Wolf.
Black Wolf. So Eleanor, when she sees Black Wolf, she's so that she just betrays them
Yeah.
and just jumps in the tank and goes off. And Avatar and the green elf, where they're like, what
Weehawk.
happened?
I love
what
Weehawk.
happened to her?
I love
I'm
Weehawk.
thinking that's not very, God bless women's lib, it works because you can't just have that.
Why not?
Can't she?
Why not? If you're showing, if
Why
you're
can't
making,
she just
listen,
be a
if
character?
you're making a film, if you're a guy who's crazy like Bakshi, and you just want to make a film that shows
Yes.
every single person is an anti-hero, okay? The
All right.
guys are freaking whatever, the good, evil, whatever. I want to take over the world. The women are like, oh, I want this psychotic bad boy guy. Like whatever it is, it's just it's fair if you're treating everybody and showing them in their worst possible tendency.
All right, because in the
And
end,
because we live in a
Eleanor-
society, we live in a society today that basically says that men have to behave like gentlemen and be traditional and do all these things. It's like men are, it's okay to hold men accountable, but the second that we try to say, well, women should be accountable too, it's like, no, women can do whatever they want. I think there's a little bit of an element in our culture that if you see, you're only pointing out this chick being depicted in this bad way. There's plenty, all these characters are depicted like dogs, basically. They're all terrible.
I see that. But in the end, Eleanor was just like, I'm going to marry Avatar and have babies.
And Avatar is like a dirty old man, right? So
Well, I don't know if he's
the whole
dirty.
thing, they're all like, they're
He's like, I got a good 1,000 years left. Hey, whatever that. I'm like, oh man.
Well, with Eleanor, it's clear that he does give her a motivation, is that she just sort of wants power. So it doesn't it didn't surprise me that she was like jumped in the tank, because he gave her the fairy power, and he was talking about how he didn't give her the full power yet, and then she like discovered. So then when she sees more power, or it's perceived as more power, she goes there. So it wasn't so out of character for her to just be like, oh, I found something better, bye. Like they clearly have like a relationship, a certain relationship that's not really quite based on like true love and partnership, which is fine. So it's at least within the movie, it's in character.
Do you believe in true love, Judy?
I do.
Okay.
And I do believe in goodness too. It's just that's not the characters that he wrote for this movie. It's very self-serving.
It is. I just wish it's like maybe he's thinking, I got $2 million. I'm doing it my way. And that doesn't work often. You need somebody to kind of focus your energy. That's all I got to say.
All right.
Also, in the fight scenes, one side had bombers, artillery, and paratroopers off of parachutes out of airplanes. And I think that stuff is just, and there was a lot of filler in the battle scenes, because the movie is basically 20 minutes too long out of 80 minutes. It could be shorter. And I just thought that was just weird. It's like, is he saying that they actually had airplanes and artillery versus the elves with both?
No, I think that's all the film.
Symbolic?
That's all
Was
the
it
projection, the magical projection.
See, that's my next question. What's with that? So he has a movie projector.
Right.
Then he has in Second World War II war footage.
Right.
Then he projects it on the battlefield, and that makes Nazi bombers come to life.
See, Hitler said that Leni Riefenstahl's films were the most important weapon of the Reich.
What did he say again? Oh, the camera?
Her camera, her propaganda films were so important. So I think that's what Bakshi's saying in terms of Black Wolf using films of Hitler. Come on, this is the only film for families where one of the major starring players is Hitler. Like, Hitler's actually in this animated movie.
He is.
You actually see him.
You see him. You see him smiling and shit.
Smiling
like this.
And branding Hitler and elves. Where are you going to have Hitler and elves and fairies and dwarves?
Like, did you really need to put it, just because you put Hitler in your movie doesn't make you deep?
No, that's like every NYU film.
I don't think
that's what I'm saying.
I don't think Bakshi thinks he's being deep. Do you?
Yes.
I don't think he's being deep. I think he might have been. Right. I think you might think his film was deep if he made the trilogy that he made. But it's funny because then he tried to make Lord of the Rings and he couldn't make that trilogy either. Like they pulled the rights away from him there. Like I don't know. Like this is a faulty film, but some of the vignettes are great. That the sequence of the guy talking to his son or his nephew about the mutants always run away scared and they're always easy to, so don't worry about it. Yeah. And then the projector goes up. Like that's like, there's something about the way he captures character that's amazing, despite the fact that I don't know the intention of most of the characters, especially.
It's just for me, it's like, whatever your theme is, just make it. And then just stick to your themes.
The theme of
then,
this movie is a clownland acid trip. I mean, it's just like LSD mixed with just ridiculous fairy tale that doesn't make sense. The whole thing is just one ridiculous, like dreamlike thing after another. The story doesn't make it's just a crazy. And the ending is the best. The way he kills them.
The ending is good. I did like the ending because
I was saying that's the best wizard's duel
Yes.
Better than the one in Conan the Destroyer, I think. It doesn't have two acting teachers fighting, but it does have a surprise in it
It's not as fun.
that makes it one of the best wizard.
Just for those people out there who don't want to watch the movie, so the whole movie, the good wizard, the bad wizard are battling each other in different ways, and they're brothers. But in the end, they're ready to rolling up their sleeves, are ready to get into a magic battle like David Lopan in Big Trouble in Little China. If you remember that.
Yeah.
So they're battling it, and then Avatar says, "Look here, Black Claw, I have one more trick left up my sleeve that our mother taught me." And he just shoots him with a gun. So no magic, but that I just dug
Technology
that.
instead of
Uses
magic.
technology.
Yeah, but I dug that because it's like now you can't be all good and all bad. You need a little speck of something like the yin and yang on like either side. And I think that's why Avatar won, because yes, he was good and he wanted to put flowers everywhere to make things pretty, which he did in the movie. But then in the end, he's like, you know what? You need a balance. And he just shoots him with a gun because it's like, this ends. Bang, you're dead. No magic, no moral authority here. The moral choice is just ending evil, even if I did it in an evil way. And that's cool because I could dig the end justifies the means, I guess, in a movie, but not two wrongs make a right. That I just don't believe in any case. But I did dig that, which is cool because after the battle was just like, what's going on here? It's like to me it seems like Ralph Bakshi wanted to have that final battle clip playing in the Jewish Museum or the Jewish Heritage Museum or the Holocaust Museum on a loop, as in for 20th century interpretations of the Holocaust. It just seems like he wanted to get in there and he was really reaching to make a statement, which is fine, but that statement's been made before, and it's just, you put it in a movie that's not necessarily your audience because you're going to introduce kids to that stuff, or maybe the kids will just be watching it, see black and white footage of a dude in a funny mustache and not ask their parents what's going on here. I don't know. It just seems a little unfocused, and he just, took all the ingredients in the kitchen and put them in one pot.
Well, you're just saying that because you had the benefit of like Schindler's List, as a kid.
I guess. I mean, I did see that
teaching
later.
kids about Nazis yet,
Yeah, this is where
this is the 70s, not the 90s.
70s.
There's no Holocaust studies program for 7th graders like I had. I had to learn about the Holocaust like every year.
Really?
In like junior high
We only
school.
had
I'm younger
4
than you.
days. We only had 4 days on World War II and 1 day, 45 minutes.
I mean, I had to learn about it in secular
Holocaust.
school. I had to learn about it in Hebrew school. I had, and then I didn't really learn about it until I got much older and actually tried to understand what the hell, most people don't understand it. But the point is that you didn't, after World War II ended, you had a bunch of people who came home and just wanted to put that all behind it. Like, nobody talked about the war for a long time. Nobody talked about the shit that they saw when they liberated camps for a long time. And you know where they talked about it the least and where it was the most shameful? This will give you a little insight into the culture that Bakshi grew up in.
Okay.
It did not talk about this stuff in Israel for a long time. You'd think that it was like right away, the seventh million Jews, the 6 million were killed in Europe. And then there's the 7th million, there were a million survivors that came to Israel shortly, like within a period of time after between 46 and 40. Yeah, they were trying to get in while the British were still there. Finally, a lot of people came in, but Israel was fought for by a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds, but 1 million of them were Holocaust survivors, and they didn't talk about it with their kids at all. It was nothing, and it was so repressed that there was this phenomenon. Do you know what I'm talking about? These the comic books that were coming out. There were these sort of like weird sexual, like sadistic BDSM, weird comic books that started coming out in the late 50s and early 60s. That were sort of like helping the children of Holocaust survivors process the trauma. Like, it was, all the stories were basically like these really hot Nazi women
Oh, like
torturing and beating
Ilsa the she-wolf.
the
Like
other
Elsa the
guys,
she-wolf.
and then the guys, and then eventually they would get their revenge and rape and kill them. Yeah, it was insane, and these were illegal. They were sold for a short period of time, and the Israeli government like made it illegal. And they're kind of like a cult. They're sort of like these weird like collectible cult things. They're in Hebrew. And like this is just so you understand the
Oh my God.
repression that was going on. The 70s was really the beginning of people starting to talk about this shit.
This is
to be honest.
This is when Marathon Man came out. This is when Boys from Brazil came out.
Yeah.
This is when like really like even Star Wars, like the bad guys look like Nazis.
Nobody wanted to touch this subject. It was just too uncomfortable for everyone.
Okay, so you introduce it.
Too freaking painful, like to do.
There's an Ilsa She-Wolf of the SS poster for $1,000.
Yeah.
On eBay. I was trying to find those weirdo comic books.
I forget what they're called. There's a name for them in Hebrew.
Hebrew, Hebrew comic books. You said 1950s?
Early 60s pornographic Hebrew comic books.
Early 1960s.
I mean, I would not be surprised if Bakshi grew up with that kind of like.
Yeah, he had like 2 issues that he worshipped as a kid or something.
I don't know.
I think he was out of Israel.
He was out of there by that
in New
point.
York and in Foggy Bottoms in the South when growing up. So I don't think
he grew up mostly in America, but I know he had, I don't know. He came from that generation of like those. It would be kids around his age that were struggling to understand what happened.
Yeah.
And none of the grown-ups were talking about it. And trauma has these weird like 30-year cycles where when really, really, really horrible things happen, usually the floodgates start to open up like 30 years that when you're
it's like every generation
in the process. And so the fact that the 70s was the beginning of people starting to depict this stuff is not such a surprise to me.
Let me look up Israeli comics because I can't find
I'll find it.
Israeli comics.
Well, you guys are looking. I'll ask Judy. We'll go through the characters. We'll talk about which ones we like or don't like.
Yehuda and Maya?
So you have
Stalag fiction.
Stalag fiction.
The lost comics of the 1960s. Stalag fiction.
Okay.
Let me see. Like here, I'm gonna pull up an image right here. I guess I can hold this up for the camera.
I have no idea. ST.
This is gonna look a little grainy.
There we go.
Oh wow.
So you have these dominatrix looking Nazi women, you know, it's weird stuff, but it's like a revenge porn. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, creativity and sexuality are in the same chakra. And
that's a good point. Yes, it is.
Force. So what doesn't surprise me that the trauma would almost become. It makes sense actually in this film because there's a lot of hidden undertones of sexuality, and then war.
Sexuality.
So it does actually really correlate to what you're talking about. That would come out that way. It sort of comes out sideways.
Yeah.
59% on the tomato meter.
Yeah.
70% audience score.
That's how you know it's a cult classic.
It's a cult classic. I recommend really strong weed with any Bakshi film. The backgrounds, like when Necron 99 is riding out and there's the brontosaurus ghost. Remember that in the beginning?
Yes, I didn't know what that was all about either.
It's just some weird Bakshi effect.
But it's like an opaque brontosaurus just being afraid and going away as Necron 99 was just shooting his gun towards the camera and stuff. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, but it looks beautiful. You know?
Oh, it's also interesting. I remember when the movie starts, it's like not animated, and it's like
footage,
a video of a book. And I remember saying like, "Oh, I thought this was an animated film. Why is it an actual picture going into a book?" That was the only part in the whole movie that seemed like it was actually filmed.
That was because of budgetary considerations, I think.
That's what I thought. I was like, oh,
yeah, that's what's going on.
Yeah. And it kind of also reminded me from like a writing standpoint it's almost like, okay, I have 20 ideas for a movie and storylines. And so I'm going to write all these different scenes and then I'm just going to like put them all together. Try and make it work. It reminds me of I think American Horror Stories, the second season or the third season, where they're in the asylum and there's just like all these different topics. And I know some people loved it. It wasn't my favorite season because I just felt like it was like so many different things going on. And it sort of, the movie kind of felt like this for me a little bit too, where there was like, it felt like a bunch of scenes, right? Well acted, well put together, the art, and then it was just like, okay, how do we merge this one with that one? What's our transition?
Yeah,
What's our
exactly.
transition? What's our transition? And
Every
so
scene was
that's
like
how
a
it felt
different,
kind of jarring.
yeah, it was like every scene was like a different story,
Yeah,
like a new story. It should have been made into a different movie.
yeah. That's how
one
it
of the
felt
things
for me. And that's why I think I gave up like halfway through. I just was like, okay, I just gotta watch it to the end of it. I
Because
was
it
like,
did. Well, I was just saying because it didn't hold my attention or Judy's attention. It seems like because there wasn't like a theme.
Yeah.
Just have one, whatever it is.
I
Like
figured
good
out
versus
very
evil, but
quickly
then you
that the
put in
story. I figured out very quickly early on that this is going to be a ridiculous story, and so I kind of what kept me along for the ride was like diving into the animation and the characters and the gestures, and you know, and being a little bit stoned, I guess. I mean,
I guess, yeah.
that made it work for me. I didn't need. Once I realized that this wasn't going to be a coherent story, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go along for this absurdist ride. And I think if you're, it can be really uncomfortable if you're struggling to try to figure out what. It's like when you watch The Big Sleep the first time, and you get frustrated that it doesn't make any sense, and then you think, oh, I'm gonna watch this again, and I'm gonna get a whiteboard and write down take notes, and then you talk to, and then you go on YouTube, and you after the second time, you still don't really understand how the whole thing went down and how the loose ends get tied up. So you go into YouTube and you try to search for an expert who explains the whole how the big sleep thing, and then you realize, and then you try to watch it a third time, and it still doesn't make any sense, and it's frustrating. But if you realize at the get-go that it just doesn't make any fucking sense, it's just a kind of a fun movie to watch.
I feel like this would be a fun movie to have like on the background of a party.
I guess it would because it
All of
doesn't
the
make
films
sense.
are like
Like
that.
it's just a party movie. Like just have it on. It's like it's cool graphics and actually the music was good at for most
Music
of
is
it.
always good, yeah.
I would say so. It's sort of like one of those. I would think it's like you have it at some like cool hip artist Brooklyn party on like a projector on a wall, and like people are doing drugs or whatever.
That's
like,
what I watched.
Not my life anymore, but
I watched it like it was like a long music video.
yeah.
And the first fight between Necron and Weehawk, the way Weehawk moves and the way they're grabbing each other's like feet and he's swinging the sword and stuff like that. And it's just like, I like that because it's like, when I was younger, I was like, I don't like the elves in this because they're not like elves in like Dungeons and Dragons or Tolkien. And now coming back to it, it's like, I like Weehawk just being like this complete nutball barbarian elf. And that fight is beautiful where they fall in the water and that big bubble comes up.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you imagine what this movie could have looked like, if
then it transitions. Yeah, the big bubble comes up. It transitions into like a tableau of Castlevania with a castle.
Montagar,
yeah, and then that waves like this, and then we're somewhere else.
Yeah, but imagine if the whole movie could be done like that. I think it's great, man. I think it's like it's really cool. And if they had actually made the movie you wanted to make, you can imagine that like all those transitions would be like that instead of like a book being read to you by a very sad woman, like who goes to Renaissance fairs.
I liked her voice.
You liked her voice? I think it's
the
interesting.
Narrator?
I think it's interesting.
I know. I thought the narrator, which is weird because the voice does not look like that woman's face. So she did a great job doing her.
I actually, when I heard because I had a hard time focusing. It was also late and I was tired. But whenever it would go back into her narrating, I was like, oh, I can understand when it was her telling the story. I was like, oh, I can vibe with this,
Yeah.
So I actually, it piqued my interest. Once I heard her voice, I was like, oh, good, we're back to here. So now I can.
Because that's like every like 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
There's her thing, and that's kind of cool, keeping it together as some sort of like rhythm that the movie has, because Avatar, he just meets the Viking Abdul and he's like, hey, we got an army. Oh, doesn't somebody from Abdul's army shoot an arrow into Avatar's arm? And then they're like, hey, we just had to make sure you were cool. And Avatar's like, it's fine. And they go out and go drinking. Like, what?
I thought the fairies shoot.
Or somebody. I just think it's just
the king of the fairies say the only thing that we can trust is that Avatar, as powerful as he didn't do anything when you shot the arrow into his arm.
Yeah, well, they're gonna shoot you. I'm fine. To me, as a screenwriter, it's just like, this happens, it's a great idea, but I need to get this there. Oh, I'll just have him say it's cool.
I would never say study this movie to be a good screenwriter.
Oh my
just say it's an example of some adult animation that you'll never see anything like this again, that was drawn by hand in an age of like where animation is Pixar. This is an amazing film. Also, that people were in the same room with the mics, whereas in Pixar, like you just know that they bring in the one voiceover person and he does a day, and then they splice it all together.
Then 8 months later, he does it again.
Yeah, I mean, you'll never see a film like this again.
I think that's one of its iota of charm, because there's nothing like this. You can barely see anything like this. And even with his other films, they're very different. Even American Pop, which he made, this was 2 movies later. A lot of that was a lot of just like video that he messed with, and not a lot of animation. And he had a lot of music in that too, because I think Heavy Metal came out around the same time. No. American Pop was a year before Heavy Metal, because Heavy Metal had nothing to do with Bakshi, but it was kind of his style. I guess maybe those people stole from American Pop, which is cool. I'm just saying, I could. That's cool, because this was in this era. It was like cartoons don't have to be for kids, but especially at the time, if it was a cartoon, everybody assumed it was for children. So you would bring kids to this, and kids would be interested in it just because it's a cartoon. And then you're seeing Hitler.
I don't know anyone who ever tells me they saw Wizards as a kid. I don't know anyone
at the
who saw
time,
Wizards in the theater. But evidently people did. And evidently it was enough of Bakshi was big enough that Lucas met with him to get the name of the movie changed, because it might be a threat to the box office of Star Wars.
Yeah, and I guess it was wait, which one was Mark Hamill? He played Sean?
He played Sean.
Which one was he?
He's the little blonde, blue-eyed fairy who gets blown away after he greets them. And then as punishment for killing him, they put Eleanor in that sort of like King Kong device.
The rock thing.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's do some closing argument.
Oh, yeah. I remember that part, because I was just like, what? She's being tortured now? All right, go ahead. All right, okay, go ahead.
Closing argument, Seth.
I think people should see Wizards. I recommend Strong Weed. I recommend watching other Bakshi films, but most of them are more complex and complete. And I think, what else can I say? I know there's a cult following of people who get peace tattoos with him on his weird horse. So my closing argument is it's an interesting film, which upon trying to analyze it to make it as hard as it was to like give you the narration on this, it's great. I think it's a good first viewing, and don't go back to it. How about that? That's a good one. And smoke a lot of weed and watch Fritz the Cat and Coonskin and any traffic.
All right, I'll go.
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings.
Especially if you're a Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings was good, but I'll go. Okay. If you're gonna watch Wizards, do not do it alone. It's much more fun with at least one other person, if not 5. Because then you could look at it and look at each other and be like, what? And the movie's so just, I don't know what to say, disjointed, that you don't know what you're watching, but your buddy does. And then your buddy might not know what he's watching 10 minutes later, but you will. And then you could inform each other about what's going on. And yes, you know, weed might help, even alcohol, because you're like, what? You're looking at it, and it is riveting and it is innovative. But I got to end it there, man. All right, good. Thank you. Yeah, and then she's being tortured. What? Like, and then we're done torturing you. Okay, what the what? Like, oh God.
Judy?
Oh, jeez.
So from a parent's angle, you guys talked about it being a family movie. So as a mother, I have toddler children. I think if they were to be in the room, they would sort of be unswayed by it because it would be like, oh, fairies and elves. They don't really get the storyline. I don't think they'd be fazed by like the Hitler footage. It wouldn't mean anything to them. I think if you had older children that are more cognitive of things, they'd probably have some questions. So if you do watch the movie,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Judy.
It's
but
okay.
You said that, you know, Orca traumatized, was your daughter was terrified of.
She's scared of it. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. I would say don't even let a kid in the room with this movie. I don't know.
Well, no, I think because so music has a big effect on fear in movies. And Orca at the end, there was a lot of angles, and the guy was in there was blood, and it was real.
Right.
And so for her, that's what scared her was the footage of Orca swimming around and him getting flipped up. So it was a little bit like, ooh, where this, it's like, oh, the fairy has, and the guys, you know, the worst thing was like a gunshot with some blood in a cartoon. So, but anyway, I'm not recommending this for your children. I'm just saying that I think if you have little ones, it's not even going to phase them.
If you have little ones, show them Watership Down. That's a good animated film to start your kids off.
Yeah,
Rabbits,
I mean,
like,
remember, a lot of kids also got scared from Toy Story 4. You know, I tried to put that on for my daughter, and she was like, I don't like this.
Yeah, well, the new toy is like,
yeah, she's like, let's just watch Coco, or you know, like.
It's so unpredictable, like what kids can handle.
Anyway, I think it would be fun as like an art party or a group of creatives or a group of, you know, adults to just have on sort of. I think it's a great party film or a gathering film, especially if you have people who don't really know each other yet, because there's so many good conversation starters that you can have about this.
That's what's cool.
For me, I think it would be fun. Other people might be like mortified because I have like a weird sense of humor. Seth knows that. So for me, I'd be like, oh, this is a weird film. But for like other like straight normie people, they might be like, who picked this film? You know, so I guess choose at your own discretion. Yeah. But as far as like loving this film, not really for me personally.
Yeah.
So with that, I don't have much to add to what they said, but I want to know what movie we are doing for our next one.
It's my vote, and I had this movie on VHS back in the day. I don't know how I found out about it. I think my mom rented it out, which is weird because she knows a lot about it. At least she knew a lot about an independent film, but she's not an artsy fartsy type anyway. So she's like, Sean, you gotta watch this. And I did, and then I bought it on VHS, and I seen it, God, 30 times. I liked it so much. I bought the soundtrack. Yes, I liked it so much. I bought the soundtrack, which was the soundtrack. It was a lot of smooth jazz. It's a neo-noir. It's from 1993. It's called Romeo is Bleeding. It has an excellent cast: Gary Oldman, Juliette Lewis, Annabella Sciorra, and a woman named Lena Olin, who wasn't in a lot of films, but she really is brilliant. She's brilliant. And it got a 27% on Rotten Tomatoes with a 62% audience score. So there's
like a winner.
Is what?
Sounds like a winner for what we do.
I'll watch it. If we're talking about it, I already want to watch it again. Also, the last sequence of this film, it's on YouTube, and I just looked it up just to see if it was there, and it was. So it's not just me. Somebody took that clip, put it on YouTube because they thought it would get views, and it does, because it's brilliant. and it's written by a woman, which I think is fascinating. If you just watch the movie, it's like it's all written by and it was just her. It wasn't like a team of writers or somebody wrote it and then she did it. No, it was just her. And I think she was more into casting. She was a casting director, and then she wrote this and through her contacts gave it to a man named Peter Medek, who was Serbian or Croatian. Anyway, but he did The Changeling in '81, which is a huge hit. And Judy knows it. And then so he did this in '93. So I'm recommending Romeo is Bleeding.
All right.
Awesome.
We
Looking
watching
forward
that.
to that.
I'm Seth Michael. I'm Team Elf. What are you?
I don't know.
Team Mutant?
Yeah.
Team Mutant.
Yeah, I'll be Team Mutant.
Good Team Mutant.
Yeah.
I'll be Fairy Power all the way.
And you were fairy.
day.
2 versus 2. Technology versus love.
If you do watch Wizard, I recommend washing it down with The Last Unicorn.
Oh, that movie made me cry.
That's a case, so that'll make you cry.
Yeah.
That's a good movie when
Never
people
saw
have
that.
motivations. We'll see it. We won't be doing that here. Okay.
It's too good.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
All right.
Talk about
Bye,
it.
everybody.
Peace,
All right.
guys.
Next one will be Mutant.